But how come when I make the scones, they don't got that good flavor like yours, Tony?
At the mansion, two gangsters talk about scones. It's actually kind of hysterical, but then they see someone. Huntress breaks in and approaches a figure in bed, declaring he hasn't changed but she did, and shoots him. But it's a fake.
No.
Double Date is an episode about comical bickering, but also revenge, obsession, and self-delusion, and is written by Gail Simone. At the center of this episode is Huntress, someone looking to kill Mandragora, someone under the League's protection.
Speaking of squealing, Black Canary.
And we start with her already at the peak of her downward spiral. She fails John's test and is genuinely heartbroken over losing her membership.
I hope you choke on it.
However, on the way out, she hears Question, strangely rambling about Cadmus. They're both outsiders in the superhero community.
Wildcat says you're a nut job.
He says the same thing about you.
Thus, despite Helena's insults and Vic's dismissive attitude, they immediately take refuge with each other and start vibing. Subsequently, Huntress and Question is up there when it comes to my favorite pairings in the DCAU. Certainly better than f***ing Bruce and Barbara, and a lot of it's because they're the two weirdos of the League. If Dinah and Ollie is the cheerleader and the footballer couple, Vic and Helena is the school emo, the science nerd who's always in his own little world.
Okay, bored now, goodbye.
As a result, they only have each other, because they're the only people who have the patience for the other. There's also just a moment I love where Huntress points out one of Question's clipboard conspiracies.
I had no idea that the Girl Scouts were responsible for the crop circle phenomenon.
Few people do.
Out of all the examples the episode could have used to reintroduce him here, they used the most absurd one. Anyways, the main theme of this episode is then established.
Apophenia, noun. The tendency to see connections where none exist.
At first, Question thinks she's making fun of him, but she actually offers information on Cadmus in exchange for him helping her find a target. To help someone see, that's the central arc.
Interesting.
Question then surprises her by not just being a phone informant, but also acts as her partner with a sweet ride. And when he asks about her motives,
You wouldn't understand.
he already knew. Huntress's father was a powerful crime boss. As a child, she didn't understand, but she did see how Mandragora, her father's scariest bodyguard, killed him and her mother. As a result, she's acting out of unprocessed trauma. When she said she didn't change, she was talking about herself. When she refuses to listen to John's, that was because she couldn't. And when she loses her membership with the League, even though it hurts, she's able to move on because that angry little girl inside her, she's still there looking for retribution. Nothing's changed after these decades.
I've changed some since we met last, but you haven't changed. All these years you've been building your empire with thievery and murder.
Huntress and Question's journey in this episode in a way describes the mirror stage where a baby first sees their reflection, and unlike other animals, instead of losing interest, they then start to put effort into exploring the connection between themselves and their image. Jacques Lacan describes this fascination as the moment where we become divided and never whole, because we project our imagination onto the other, creating feelings of love or hate with the versions we see of ourselves. As I quote, "The mirror stage is a drama whose internal thrust is precipitated from insufficiency to anticipation, and which manufactures for the subject caught up in the lure of spatial identification." That was so much jargon. The point I'm making is that Helena is someone that's lost, and killing Mandragora is an attempt for her to restore some semblance of identity, to restore the meaning of that little girl. But Question knows this is impossible, so instead he forces her to reflect upon herself and see the futility of that unity. But before he can do that, they have to get past another couple. Mandragora is protected by Arrow and Canary, alongside the feds, and in a bit of 4D chess, he outwits everyone by harassing the Leaguers so much that they get kicked out.
Hope I'm proud of myself. You're the one that punched him.
By the way, I don't know why, but him calling Ollie a leprechaun is like the funniest thing ever.
Why don't you go and fetch me another oysters like a good little leprechaun?
The two then notices Question and Huntress sneaking in, and they fight. All the while, Mandragora escapes. Everything in this episode is sneakingly framed around hiding in plain sight. I love it.
Why are you doing this, Question?
You wouldn't believe me if I told you.
Ollie and Dinah is the couple Vic and Helena will become, and as the two gets reprimanded, the Leaguers get distracted by the evidence Question tries to take. Although that was Question's trick,
The key was mine.
which is kinda hysterical. Like, imagine what would have been found if Ollie didn't figure it out. Question has pretty much every single thing figured out this whole time. He knew Mandragora wasn't going to cooperate with the feds, and at the docks, he wasn't leaving but picking someone up. His little boy, Edgar, so he can disappear. and that's what he had to make sure Helena would see.
You knew all along that kid was gonna be on that freighter.
I do my homework.
As a result, when everything fits together, Question stands up and asks,
Is this really what you want?
the connection she wanted with the terrified little girl who lost her mummy and daddy has been lost. That was her apophenia. And instead, she feels an imagined unity with this terrified Edgar, but that's made her see that she's Mandragora now. As a result, she instead drops a load of construction beams on him. What? Helena is like, why risk your life for me? Question reveals he fancies her, so they kiss and leave together.
Ew.
Originally, this was supposed to be a Birds of Prey episode where Barbara Gordon becomes Oracle after being injured and works with Black Canary and Huntress, but due to the bat embargo, she was replaced by Ollie and Vic. So thank God for that, because this was one of the best JLU episodes. Huntress and Question then stay as an item for the rest of the series.
What are you wearing?
Blue overcoat, fedora.
Subsequently, the most noticeable next experience they share is when Question finds out about Parallel Earth Superman killing Lex, and that our world is perhaps a time loop. But then he gets his ass slapped, so Huntress moves in,
I'll find you, baby.
and her anger appeals to Superman, so this time he's not going to follow the rules. A compromise which adds to the broader theme of, oh no, Superman might end up like the Justice Lord dude, but in the confines of Helena's story, her love is so great that she convinces a god to break into hell to save her man. She even almost kills Vic's torturer, and back on the tower, Question reveals his face, admitting,
You were right. I am the ugly.
Ugliest guy of all time, Question. Not in my eyes.
Question knew and understood everything about Huntress, her motives, her past, and her pain, and instead of judging her or condemning her like the League, he saw something more, saw she could change if given the opportunity. All she needed was someone compassionate enough to know her and guide her, so it didn't matter what Vic looked like. He's more than just flesh and blood. So this was the Question and Huntress video. Technically it's more of a Huntress video than anything because I'm going to do an entire video dedicated on Question and will function as a cohesive retrospective, including analysing the original Denny O'Neil run, and I'll find some way to look at the Randian influences on the character. Anyways, special thanks to everyone on Patreon. You guys rule.